Order at 6:02. And how about a pledge of allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Here's the pen for the manifest. Sorry, I stuck it in my pocket. Manifest is working its way around.
Did everybody already sign it?
I did not.
Yep.
It's I sent it that way. I don't know. Oh, I guess it's already done. That's actually Phyllis's.
Okay, get the.
I'm going to sign it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Minutes. Can I have a motion on the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Okay. Larry is still recovering from his surgery, by the way. I called him, said I'd give him a ride, but he wants another one. I'm not sure about Corey. I believe he's out of town. Okay, so we took care of the manifest. Student council has to leave early, so we moved you to the beginning.
Thank you.
Anything you'd like to say? You're the floor.
We are in the midst of our annual winter carnival. It has been going very well. Currently, the rankings go junior, senior, sophomore, freshman, but I'm still hoping the freshmen have a chance to pull ahead. I mean, the seniors have a chance to pull ahead. We're very close. The NHS has been hosting a very successful book drive. We have boxes upon boxes and boxes of books to be donated to new homes. That's about all I have on the top of my head.
Okay. Thank you. If you would like to leave, by all means, you can leave now, because that's why I know you wanted to come first, because you have an appointment to go to. So
Yep.
If you get up and walk out, nobody will be looking funny at you. Okay. We have a excellence in education presentation by Mr. Stack, the principal of the high school, and also a greenhouse update. I'm going to call it update. So if you would, you want to, just so that she can, do we need a microphone for him?
I speak pretty loud. No, I'll use it.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I don't have a presentation for you, but just under correspondence, I know we shared some pretty exciting news earlier this week that the school is a candidate for the Excellence in Education Award, and I think the press release was pretty self-explanatory. It is a big deal. We've won once before as a high school. It was 1998. The press release originally said 1988, but it was 98.
98, I was here.
Pete was here, and Pete and I were talking before. It is a very exhaustive process. When the site team comes in, they literally will comb through the whole school that day. And we're being graded against a 5-part rubric. There are 5 competencies, things that they're looking for, and we'll see how we do. We're going to have a lot of people involved in that site visit. We're trying to get as many different parts of the community pulled together, and it's a very quick turnaround. I was notified yesterday or Monday? Yeah, Monday. And they're coming 2 weeks after vacation, and there's a lot that we have to pull together. So we're excited. We'll keep you posted, but I didn't know if you had any questions.
As one who went through it, they will be in, I don't know, it's every classroom, but darn close to it. They will be talking to teachers. They'll be talking to students. They'll be talking to lunch workers. They'll be talking to administrators, custodians. They talk to everyone. And we were lucky enough to win it back in 1988.
Yep.
But it is, exhaustive is a good word to use.
Guess who one of the people is that they want to talk to? School board chair. You and I will have to talk later.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
What is the qualification to be nominated?
So that's a great question. Actually, you self-nominate. So we chose as a staff this year to put ourselves in the running for it. And what they do is, I have no idea how many schools apply, but they invite schools in for an initial presentation in front of the selection committee. And from that, they decide if they're going to come out and name you a candidate and come out and do a site visit.
Thank you.
I actually think the middle school was a candidate 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I remember them getting a site visit, but I don't believe they were selected that year. Maybe, yes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So after they do their site visit, do you get a written report whether or not we win?
That's a great question. I don't know.
Okay, I'd love to know that, and if,
Yeah.
and if there is a written report after it, I would love to see it come to the school board and also be published.
I think that would be great. And if we don't get something written, I think at the very least, I might be able to get some feedback from the committee, and I could put something together based on that, so that one way or another, we could share that information. I think it'd be great.
Yep. Are you sure?
I think so. So I read through the application and the PowerPoints and the rubric for deciding a winner. And I have a few concerns that are not your issue, it's just with the entire award itself. I noticed that they're encouraging us to fall behind in our old habits of looking at inputs instead of outputs. They're looking at things like climate, culture, instructional practices, and data gathering, rather than actual outcomes and assessment trends. So that's a concern I have. And I also am concerned because 12 of 14 SAU 17 outcomes have declined since the PACE project was started for many reasons, not simply that professional development is being developed for the teachers and they're not up to speed on PACE yet. But for me, I think we should be really concerned about our outcomes. And it looks like the past winners had pretty high assessment outcomes. Some of them had twice the success rates we have in math and English in 11th grade. And then finally, I am a little concerned about the time allocated to applying for awards. It could be as extensive as grant writing. It's quite a major task. And I'd like to know how much time we're spending on this, how many administrators are involved, whether the time should be used for our students rather than awards. Folks, our 11th grade math test scores proficiency rate is 37%. And I'll bet that's not on anyone's resume. So I'm very concerned that we should be focusing on the students rather than applying for awards. And then finally, simmering in the background, and I just want to say this looking forward as a board, we have a continuing dialogue about what matters in our schools. Is it programs for program's sake, or is it performance, actual outcomes? And we seem to be moving toward a no grades curriculum, no fixed seat time, and no letter grades based on high stakes testing, which is allegedly bad, but we need to have a discussion about the data we're getting and whether the new program is really serving our students, since it is described as more rigorous, and that should be coming out in those capstone grades, such as the 11th grade. So those are my concerns moving forward. I wouldn't mind getting a follow-up report on some of those questions. Thank you.
That's it. Okay. You have something on the greenhouse?
I think we're going to start with Michelle. She's got a report out for you based on some questions that you guys had at one of our earlier meetings.
One of the questions raised was how the funds would be used for the greenhouse project. So we did reach out to Attorney Diane Goro, and there was a letter that was included in your packet that talked about 3 different scenarios. I'm not going to read through each of those, but I think that as the board thinks about how we might move forward with that project, and if we are going to go to the next step, then along with that, we can talk about how we might structure tracking of the funds and tracking of the construction itself. And we have some options within this document, which range from having an external group manage it completely, or having the trustee of trust funds manage the funds. There are a couple different alternatives.
And one other piece for you with that, it was asked whether or not there could be a second alternate location that could be looked at for the greenhouse. So we did invite the vendor back who was working with us on the site work piece. We did identify a second site. The greenhouse company has approved that the site would work. So the site, I didn't bring any diagrams of it, but if you think about the classroom wing that runs this way, it would actually just be at the end of that classroom wing. There's a grass area that's exactly the size, well, not exactly, it's close enough to the size that we would need without disrupting any of the walkways or anything that's there. So basically would be about the same cost, because there's a couple of, it would be much closer to the building, so you'd save a little bit because you wouldn't need that little walkway, but you'd lose a little bit because there's a yard drain that would have to be capped off. So it's probably about a wash cost-wise, but it would eliminate the concern that folks may have had about using that site if there was a potential expansion use. From our purposes, using that site would be perfectly fine. Honestly, it wasn't looked at originally because it's small. It's about the size that the greenhouse would be, but it would fit. I think that's all we have.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, I read the three options. I read them earlier, but I think this is something we would have to look at once we're further down the road with the greenhouse, so I think this will be further discussion whenever we're ready to pull the trigger on whether or not we're going to actually do the greenhouse.
Right. Well, and like I said, I think at this point, the ball will be in the board's court, because I don't think we can't do anything else at this point until we know we have a commitment from the district so that the fundraising could start. And when I say we, I mean, again, it's not me fundraising for the greenhouse, but the group that's going to do that.
Why don't we put that on discussion for me and Tom and Michelle for the next agenda? Because I want to keep that as a standalone. I want to discuss whether or not we're going to do it. Once we decide we're going to do it, then we can decide which of these three options we might look at.
Yes.
I don't want to commingle them and get mucked in, how are we going to fund it? How are we, do we want it? Are we going to do it? Let's go forward. So I'm going to ask Tom, but I think perhaps if you could give us a short report with just bullets of this will happen, this will happen, this will happen, might save you, you might have to be here anyway, but might save you from coming up with, because we don't know what we're going to ask. Yep. Tom and I and Michelle will sit together. We sit together before set the agenda. But it's something we need to discuss and need to decide on pretty soon, because it's a 2-year-out project.
Yep.
Because we've got to get the funding. And the funding, if I'm correct, is not coming from tax dollars.
Correct.
So we can only move as fast as the money comes in.
Correct. But we can't start raising money until we know we're going to be able. That's why we're in a hold. And remember, we do have an organization that is willing to put $60,000 towards the project. Now, at some point, they may change their mind. They're certainly entitled to do that if they want to.
If we commit to doing this and start collecting whichever way we do it, yard sales, donations, bake sales, whatever, I would like to think that they would commit that once we commit, and we're not going to back out, then they're going to commit not back.
Oh, I would agree.
An awful position if they do.
I've been very open with them about the process.
So this is going to be on the agenda for the next meeting.
Right.
And we can have discussion and hopefully
Right.
everyone here.
Yeah.
This is really just information sharing at this point. We were asked to do a little more research to bring back some, additional pieces of information. So I think now that you have that, you can kind of sit with that and a little bit review the documents, and then we can bring it back for further discussion.
That was the plan and what we were trying to accomplish tonight. And I'm assuming
we'll need to have this information.
Correct. But
to go forward, Good.
Related to this, when this came up at the last meeting, I expressed my wish that the greenhouse would be included in the NASDAQ study. And I'm wondering, has that been contracted yet, or what's the status of the study?
Actually, Phyllis and I were just talking about that today, and really, we actually have a proposal from them, so we'll be following up with them, and we can certainly talk about this as part of that project.
One thing that occurred to me related to that, which is also related to the greenhouse, is that a lot of the high school has a second floor on this footprint. And I was thinking it would be good to know how much possible second floor expansion there is as part of that study, besides looking at an addition.
But are we talking about the
We're talking about the greenhouse.
No, but it's part of the NASDAQ study.
Right, but if we're-
Because,
Oh, well, yeah,
because what the NASDAQ study determines is going to largely dictate where the greenhouse should go.
I see your point, and that's why we're going to, I didn't say it would be on the agenda.
Yeah.
The superintendent and I and Michelle will talk about it. If it's tied into the NASDAQ and we don't have the NASDAQ report, based on what you're saying, and I think we all agree, we can't talk about the greenhouse until the NASDAQ comes in.
Well, we could talk about it, we just can't, they can't determine where the site should be, is my opinion, until the study.
Are you saying that we can, in your, we can make the decision to, yes, have the greenhouse, but exactly the location may be different?
Right.
Okay, then that's fine. We can bring that into the mix. I just don't want to be talking about the greenhouse and have somebody saying, we can't make this decision because we're waiting for the NASDAQ report. Yeah,
I just
okay.
want to be sure that the potential square footage of a second floor is included. It may not ever be necessary to do an addition. It's another option that we should know the numbers on.
School's billed for 1,200, we've got 600. I think an addition
Something-
would be many, many, many years down the road.
Something we.
But we need to discuss it, certainly.
Yeah.
I think it's an excellent point. I agree.
Related to the greenhouse, I look back at our last discussion of this back in January of 2017. The estimated cost to complete was $89,178 12 months ago, and now it's up to over $350,000. Just to explain why some of us reversed our votes, I believe it was unanimous last January,
Yep.
last year, and having to raise $300,000 is going to be a big project for people. So delaying any work on this until we get the NASDAQ study, to me, seemed sensible in light of this revised estimate of cost, which kind of left my jaw on the table a bit. So that explains why some of the votes switched to pushing this through immediately, I
Well,
think.
I think, the three of us always decide what's on the agenda. So we're going to be discussing that. It may be that we'll say the NASDAQ's not in yet, because you can see right now we have a difference of opinion, or whatever you want to call it. We need to have all the information to make the decision. And if the three of us sit there and say, we need the NASDAQ before we can go forward with the greenhouse, we may not discuss it next week, and that's why you make us the leaders, in a sense, So right now, we will discuss it. We'll see what's involved. We'll probably bring you in on the conversation, and we'll make the determination if it's on the next meeting.
And I think by next meeting, which is fine. I think you're looking at, no, I was assuming you're looking at the 21st, right? Because the 7th will be an reorganizational meeting.
No.
Maybe.
No,
Oh.
because the election's not till the 13th. Election's
Yep.
another week
Yep.
out this year. So next will be the last meeting. The meeting after that could be a problem, because that's organizational.
Right.
And all of that. But, this greenhouse isn't something that's going to be built in 6 months. So
Correct.
we do have the luxury now of time.
Right.
So
My preference, I just want to go on record as saying, would be that you do it right. Seriously. And I mean that in all honesty. You're talking about a project that has a lot of potential to do a lot of good for the community in a lot of ways, and it's being pitched in a way that, well, I think you're taking the right steps, doing it the right way. I support what you're doing. I want to be clear about that.
So,
One other comment about the letter.
which letter now?
The letter from the attorney about the different options
Yep,
for setting
yep,
up the
yep.
structure to handle the money. They didn't recommend the third option, but the first two seem very similar, except the first one would have more school board involvement, direct involvement, I guess.
Yep.
And I was concerned that if you set up a trust, there's going to be funding, there's going to be a lawyer running that trust, or somebody's going to be running it. There's going to be a cost involved.
Not necessarily. The trustees of the trust.
Yeah, I was going to say if I could respond to that. I think
Okay.
the key difference in those two options is one, is working with the existing trustee of trust funds, which already holds funds
Oh,
for the school
okay.
district.
So there would be no additional cost.
Right, right. It just becomes another fund within that
Right.
management process. The other might incur some cost because you would probably have to set up some organization to manage those funds so that it's
Or
not
somebody would have to.
in, right, because you wouldn't want the funds tracked in somebody's personal account. So you'd have to have an organization established that individuals then manage to track those funds. So that's
My
probably the least.
on a quick review of this,
So,
ahead.
just let me, so are you prepared to, when the discussion comes up, to talk about the pluses and minuses of those two options?
Yeah, I think that they're, in the letter to some degree, but
Yeah.
certainly I can
Okay.
give some insight as to what I would think might be some of the
Okay.
pluses and minuses.
See, my concern, just quickly, is we lose control when private groups take over it. How much does the school board want to oversee versus, because once we say a private group does it, we've kind of stepped back and say it's all yours now. I think Mr. Stack would be, if we go private, would be a very, very important liaison between the school board and that group, because, and the question is, does the school board, in a sense, want to give up control about something going on the school board's grounds? So these things we'll talk about, but I want you to think about it. And I'm not saying we should be control freaks or anything, but understand, it says, private group of individuals, private group to control the funds. We'll talk about it, but I wanted to put that out there, because that was when I first read this earlier today, it was like, whoa, I don't know. All right, so anyway. Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Okay, we've got committee reports. Policy, I believe, had something?
Policy met on the 8th to discuss the items shown below under old business, and the New Hampshire School Board Association's legal review of our policy manual is slowly trickling in. We hope to have more of it soon. They're working on it. Our next meeting is March 7th.
Do you, and I'm jumping ahead and we didn't discuss this earlier, you want to do the policy now, so we're all under policy, or would you like to put it where it is so you can get prepared, ready to go?
I need to bring them up, so I'll just...
Okay, that's fine.
Wait.
I just thought when we talked about policy, it's connected.
And EISA is meeting on March 21st. We've had a few meetings postponed, but the next meeting's on the 21st,
Okay. 21st of,
March.
today is the 21st, so didn't want anybody to get
Yeah.
confused. Public relations.
Public relations met, and there was a piece in the paper today talking about the different roles and trying to drum up some.
When you say the paper,
Carriage down, sorry.
okay, I get that tomorrow, so.
Oh, okay, mine came today,
Yep,
but,
no, that's right.
just talking about the role of the school board, budget committee, SAU office, and really trying to encourage the public to come to anything, everything, and
Yeah.
so, that's it.
I look at that as a left-handed compliment.
Continues to
They-
be our,
they must
our
be-
focus in public relations.
They must be happy with what we're doing because they're
Get the
not
public
here.
involved,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I know maybe I shouldn't look at it this way, but if they're not here, they must be confident in us or comfortable with us.
There are some people from the public here.
Well, yeah, then, yeah. No, but you see, because you remember 6 months ago, we were packed, Not packed, but there were a lot of people here. But anyway, that's just my feeling. Okay, seminary discussion.
We met February 1st and had just received the second appraisal. We'll discuss that further at our next meeting on March 28th.
Okay, public comment? No. Go ahead, Sandy.
Sandy Rogers Osterloh from Kingston. I do want to talk about the greenhouse. There's no doubt that we can benefit from having a greenhouse and adding to our science program and then incorporating other disciplines into that as well. But I'm very concerned. A year ago, we sat here and the price was $89,000 or just shy of $90,000. And now with the 60 given to the school district or this group for a greenhouse, a potential greenhouse, we're looking at $423,000 with needing to raise $363,000 roughly for this location. It benefits, a greenhouse can benefit our district and our students educationally. I totally agree with that. I know that it's not supposed to be coming from tax dollars. I also know that the district will have to fund any issues that come up with the greenhouse after they put the greenhouse in. It's kind of like anything else. That's great, but what does community involvement really mean? My mind went to, does that mean I can have plants in there in the summer? Does that mean my neighbor can? Are we going to do background checks on people that are coming in because they say, well, I can only come during the day, I work second shift, and I want to have plants growing in there, and I gave you, $20 when you were drumming up money. Also, what's going to happen to the summer? I work year-round in a school. In the summer, it's a ghost town. The custodians and a couple of secretaries. That's who's in the building. Who is going to take care of that? And are those people going to be vetted? When we say, yep, raise all the money, and then you tell all the people that give the money that they are going to have a vested interest in this structure that's here or here, but then you say that, well, you can't come in. You can't come in during the school day. You can't come in, there's no one here on the weekend. There's a lot of things to think about. And also, it concerns me to have a structure that the school district and the taxpayers have no control over after the fact. Don't get me wrong, I think a greenhouse is a good idea. But how it's done and what is done and the size that it is and what we understand the purpose, but what's going to happen after that if it's a community greenhouse? Because you can bet I am going to donate to that so that I can have rights to it, because I can't seem to grow anything on the sandy soil, no matter how many loads Magnuson's brings me of topsoil. A couple of other things that concern me, I totally agree, this needs to be included in the NESDEC study. Is there going to be a rendering of what this will look like on the end of the math wing? And also, what about access from the science wing to the math wing? If this, there's things that I think should be considered. And another very important thing is we have declining enrollment. We want to spend a ton of money on this, say that we're bringing in community money to pay for it, and then we'll have to tell the community they can't come in when they're going to be around kids. We need to make sure that they have had a background check, etc. I'm not trying to repeat myself, but what's going to happen in that bigger picture with a structure that includes community involvement? Another thing that really concerns me, I am so glad that you folks are paying attention. We have a middle school that is aging and inadequate. And this structure is already big enough to include a middle school, the number of students that we have. I know there's been a little chatter about talking to Fremont about that kind of thing and bringing those 8th graders in. I know that's just kind of out there, but this is the place for expanding this building. And maybe we need to look at that declining enrollment and what would, if we did do our addition here, because I know there were pictures of it, I saw them, of what it would look like for the future. That was one of the selling points. What is the greenhouse going to look like with that? I just want you to think about it clearly, and I want you to look at the big picture. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Cheryl Gannon from Kingston. I would like to echo the previous speakers. Had questions. My question really was, is the public going to have an opportunity for input to learn about this project and to provide input other than just here at school board meetings? I think there were a lot of issues that the previous speaker raised that the public would be interested in commenting and learning more about. So I would hope that that would be an opportunity that would be considered. In regards to the Education Excellence in Education Award, I was wondering who or what is the entity that gives that award? Also, in previous years, just before the vote, the school board has produced a informational newsletter called the Essential News. I was wondering if that was in the works or planning to be done this year. And finally, in regards to excellence in education, math has been a concern for the high school, and a new curriculum was put into place, and I was wondering if there was going to be any kind of an update on how that's going. Thank you.
I'm giving this also. Cheryl, this may answer a lot of your questions. I'll make it available to you. It's the handout we got. Okay, I believe there's going to be a press release on this, but we'll check it out. Mrs. Sack isn't here, so, you know. Okay, any other comment? Okay. Okay, we have a couple of policies. Got a couple first reads and a second read.
So the first one is emergency care and first aid, JLCE. And JLCE is identical to another policy in our manual, which is, I just had it a second ago, EBBC. So they're identical policies, just found in different places in our manual. So due to the continuing opioid crisis in our state, it's sadly become necessary to consider revising the policy we're looking at up here to include administration of Narcan or other opioid antagonists. This policy was revised for first read by our school nurse, Karen Scanlon, and we had a student intern, Madeline Hadwin, who assisted with this research and preparation. Other school districts have such a policy, Nashua, Raymond, Worthington, and others, to allow school nurses to administer Narcan in the event of an emergency. This is our current policy on emergency care and first aid, and the only change that's been introduced, and it is a significant change, is right here where you can see it in red. This authorization extends to administering epinephrine and an opioid antagonist, without prior notification to parents, guardians. So I would encourage the public and I would encourage board members to review this policy. We do have information on the research behind our opioid crisis and the fact that it will not be something that is used without an emergency. Our emergency personnel cannot be here in time to take care of an opioid addict's overdose. We have to have it on the premises. And we already have many medications locked in facilities in the nurse's office. So this is not something that is brand new to a nurse. She has many medications on file that have been secured. So I would appreciate the board thinking about this policy and giving us feedback. And I'd like the community to contact us as well if they have comments.
Has this policy been reviewed? Has this change been reviewed by legal so that we know we have the authority to grant that authority?
That's a good question. I believe that the superintendent has reviewed it and it's okay.
Because basically you're telling parents that they can give this drug without their permission.
That's correct, yeah.
Just if I can clarify, and I'm going to stick it to you a little bit here, Sandy. Sandy's an EMT with the fire department. I believe they're talking about the Narcan here. Okay. They call it an antagonistic.
Right.
That's because they push against each other,
I
so they,
understand what that means.
Okay. Well, the people may not.
Right.
If there is an overdose and the ambulance is called, you, as a matter of course, administer the Narcan. Okay? So I don't think we're asking anyone to do it who isn't qualified to do it, because you're talking a nurse. And this is a standard operating procedure, at least within the town of Kingston. I'm guessing you have probably given it a number of times.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So,
And there is no harm if, sometimes we give Narcan and it doesn't work because it's not the right, they took something that Narcan doesn't work in.
may not be an opioid they took.
Correct. And
I'm not questioning the effectiveness or any of that.
No, I'm just saying, as far as the legality goes, it's a matter of course. If the nurse doesn't do, I'm going to give a hypothetical. Let's say the nurse wasn't here for some reason, nobody can do it. As soon as the ambulance responds and they suspect an opioid overdose, they'd give it as a matter of normal operating procedures. So that's why I say I don't think we need to go to legal to get something that is a standard operating procedure.
All I'm saying is that parents have rights. We're saying in this case, we don't need to notify the parents. It's an emergency. We're giving permission to do it. I just want to know that we have that authority to authorize that.
Well, I think probably most parents would be.
That's why I'm trying to say it's a standard operating procedure. The fire department
All kinds
does.
of-
We have an RN doing it.
All kinds
Excuse
of-
me, Chair Broderick.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is a first read, so we do have time to do a little
So you
research. So
can
why
check.
don't we'll just do a little more research, be able to answer that question and bring it back as is if it's fine and suggest a modification if.
I just want to know that New Hampshire law backs that.
Yep.
Because people have religious convictions, they have all kinds of reasons they don't, they don't take their kids to the doctor when they're sick or whatever.
Right. Yeah. No, it's worth checking out.
So I will check on that, but other districts have similar language, so it's probably been vetted through attorneys, but I will double check. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think, do you want to do, I think it'd be better if the SAU
Yeah, we'll
office,
follow.
they'll check with the
Okay,
lawyers.
great, thank you so much.
Okay. FFA, Future Farmers of America here?
Hold on. So the policy subcommittee has been working on a new policy about memorials. We've been working on this for several weeks, and this policy establishes an understanding between the district and our communities regarding the use of physical memorials, events, or gatherings to memorialize a student or anyone that's close to the district who has passed away or died from illness, car accident, suicide, or other reasons. And we've been working on this for some time now. A draft was brought to us by Mr. Stack, and we went over it with the help of Mrs. Levitt, who is our school counselor in the high school, and school director, thank you. And she was extremely helpful in explaining the reasons why we would draft the language as we've done this. I'm sure the community will have many questions about this document. I believe it's posted online on our website, connected to the agenda. Is that correct, Phyllis? Yes. So it should be available to the public. We should probably have it posted more prominently because it's hard to dig through, click through and find things. And I would like feedback from the community on this. I know the entire subcommittee would. I don't think a second read would be immediate. We want to give people time to review the document and get some feedback about it and suggestions. Would you like me to read the document aloud for people? I can do that right now if you'd like.
Is it going to be available online?
It is, but it's somewhat important. I think we should read it aloud.
Oh, if you think so, go ahead, sure.
So, memorialization policy, the statement of purpose. The purpose of this policy is to provide a uniform and consistent set of protocols and practices to be followed after a death in the school community. The board believes that great care must be taken to ensure that grief support in the community, school community, reflects the latest research and best practices in the field of mental health. Statement of policy. Sanborn Regional School District's protocol regarding memorialization after a death in the school community is based on the latest research and post-vention responses for schools and educators from leading mental health organizations. To minimize the potential for putting other students at risk in the case of suicide, to respond to deaths in a uniform manner, to facilitate support for the process of grieving, to allow for memorials which reflect a desire to commemorate the life rather than the death of the deceased in personal and meaningful ways. Dealing with spontaneous memorials. The spontaneous memorials often appear after the death of a student or adult. The school staff should respect the need of students to express their feelings, but must also balance these displays by indicating that these remembrances will be temporary. The school administrators may remove memorials at the end of the day or after the funeral and give them to the family of the deceased person. All requests for memorialization activities and/or wearable symbols must be approved by the building principal with consultation from other district or building administrators, school counselors, the school psychologist, and other qualified staff members. Memorial activities to consider. Scrapbooks, cards, posters in one monitored location for students to express condolences to family. Memorials will be removed of the day after the funeral memorial ceremony and given to the family. One-time activity, focused memorial, which may include fundraising for prevention groups related to the cause of death, i.e. the American Cancer Society, or mental health awareness programs. Picture in yearbook for the last year that they were in attendance at the school only. Picture in class video as it would be if the student were still alive. Scholarship in memory of deceased. Focus any discussion on how we do support one another going forward. Appropriate, discrete, and small wearable symbols, ribbon, pins, bracelets, etc. Memorial activities to avoid. Now, some of these are prohibited by law, but some of them are just recommended by our the school counselor. Discussion of the specific details of death, cause of death, especially in the case of suicide. Flying the flag at half-mast. This is reserved for the death of a public figure. Posting a notice on the outside signboard, dismissing school early, canceling school, planting gardens, erecting plaques, public memorial services events on school grounds, creating a permanent part of the environment, i.e. planting trees or adding to an existing memorial site, music or other performances at funerals by school groups. I think it might be great to have Ms. Levitt come in and be available for questions at an upcoming board meeting. Heidi Levitt's really been helpful to us. She's gone through this list and explained in detail why certain things should be avoided for the best interest of the students, and she generated a list here for us of ways to remember people. So I'd love to have her in. If she's available some board evening to come and discuss these things. So please, again, publicize this, get feedback from your constituents, and we'll bring this up again.
And it is available online under tonight's agenda. Yes? Is that where they find it?
No, I think it might be in the file, no, but I'll publish it on the main page.
Yeah, so just say community feedback
Yeah,
desired.
Presentation, just have it come to the SAU office.
I think it should come to the SAU office. Yeah, and also if people have questions that way, I think, don't you agree that Heidi would be a good person? You know, they don't necessarily need to wait till a board meeting to have Heidi. Because she gave us
Right.
also a lot of supporting documentation, so maybe even that could be linked somehow. I don't know. Just
Yeah,
an
let's
idea.
discuss that, and when Tom gets back, we can
Yeah.
see what he'd like to do with
But
that.
just, if I can just piggyback on what Pam said, we discussed this extensively at policy committee with a lot of different ideas. I know I struggled with a lot of the things on here. Ms. Levitt was very good at explaining the rationale for this and giving us the background as far as psychology, best practices regarding things like this. So there were some things on here that I personally had, we had lively discussion about. And I have to say that after understanding where she was coming from and the research basis for this, I was on board with this, but we really did have vigorous discussions, and it was very, very helpful.
Before we go to the next one, we're on TV, we tend to forget. That is Phyllis Kennedy, who is the administrative assistant to the superintendent. She doesn't have a name plaque. If you wonder who this lady is that's talking over there, she's the one to make sure everything runs smoothly. So it's the people behind the scenes that make us look good, and she's the one that makes us look good. If it's messed up, it's because we probably mess up. But just so if you're wondering who this lady is over here that's speaking, is that correct, the administrative assistant to the superintendent? School board secretary in this case, but you actually are also okay, all right, so anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt, but people are looking and say, who is that lady talking, Okay.
And just so everyone knows, the policy number or letter is FFA. So if you'd like to go to other districts' policy manuals and review their policies, if they have them, to compare with our draft, that would be helpful as well. So the last policy we have tonight is a second read of IHCD, Advanced Coursework and Advanced Placement Courses. This is an updated draft to include a statement of the standards that we use to make sure our dual enrollment courses are in compliance with community college accreditation standards and the curriculum and so forth. So we've done is add in language that will allow people to understand that the dual enrollment courses comply with the standards and rigor of a college course. And this was already vetted once. And does anyone have any further comments they'd like to make on this policy?
Need a motion?
I'd like to thank Mr. Stack for drafting this for us.
So this is the second read. We need a
Second
motion
read.
for acceptance.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor? Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. We're now on to the Primex agreement. Michelle, you have something on that. I believe there's something in your packet. Am I correct?
Yes, you should have a letter from Primex, which is the New Hampshire Public Risk Management Exchange Organization.
Our
And
insurance carrier?
Our insurance carrier, that we purchase workers' comp, among other coverages through them, but this letter is specific to our workers' comp coverage. And given our past, most recent performance with them, they're offering sort of a commitment on our part that will benefit them in stability and knowing that we're going to continue to work with them and benefit us in stability in capping future in premium increases for workers' comp. So this is a 3-year cap, if you will, running from 2020 through, let's see, it says fiscal year 19-20 through fiscal year 21 to,
Not 1920.
no, I said 19, sorry.
2020.
Fiscal year, yes, it's
2020 to 2022?
2019 through 2020. I was
Okay.
using the last two numbers in fiscal year, sorry, that was confusing. But that year through 2021 to 2022. And the agreement caps the potential increase at a maximum of 10%. That doesn't mean that the premium increase would be 10%, but if you had a year that for some reason was more significant in terms of claims, your increase in premium would still be capped. So this is for the board's consideration. If you approve, I would recommend that we enter into this agreement with them. If you are so inclined to do that, there's a specific resolution, which is on the last page, that would need to be moved and seconded and approved by the full board for us to enter into that agreement with them.
You want to read or do you want us to read it?
Well, I was wondering if there are any questions, or I can read the resolution if you'd like.
So they're looking for us to continue with them for 3 years, which tells me there's other options. Have any of the other options offered us a proposal?
They have not, but I will share that in my experience, when you go to a commercial carrier for school coverage, districts don't typically fare well. This is sort of a niche industry. I'm certainly happy to do so if the board would like me to seek other proposals, but I would be surprised if you would do as well as you're doing through Primex.
So what's the difference between Primex and a commercial option?
This is a pool, if you will, and all of the members participate in this pool, but it's restricted to specific municipalities.
Governmental.
Yeah, like governmental
Do
entities.
they specialize in governmental entities?
Right.
And there's nobody else in New Hampshire that's available that does that similarly, or?
There used to be another organization, but I'm not sure that they provide that coverage any longer. Yeah,
I think the town is Primex, but I'm not sure.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I think this past year, the workman's comp was about 85,500. So 10%, if it went to that, would be 8,500.
And again, that's the cap, so they're
Right.
not quoting a premium right now,
Right.
they're just simply limiting your risk. Kind of like working with school care, and that they provide almost what's called a guaranteed maximum on a yearly basis. So this is saying, in exchange for a commitment, that they would hold that for a 3-year maximum increase.
But they haven't quoted a premium yet.
Well, it would be based on a maximum from the current years, right? So it's a cap of no more than 10% over the current year's premium by committing to
Which
this.
is roughly 85,500. So when is the premium determined?
There's usually a review of the claims, and I don't have the specific date. I'm trying to see if they say in the letter.
I think they did.
Yeah, I don't think they did either. I did call them because this letter was issued at a time that they were requesting a response. We were not able to respond within their timeline, so I did call them to seek an extension of that, and they're comfortable with this coming, to the board at this point in time. I'm not sure how much longer they would hold that. I can certainly inquire, but it's saving us from being completely re-rated, if
It
you.
runs from July 1,
Yeah.
so I would assume they're going to set the rates
Yeah.
April, May.
But the 10% is based on their experience with us, right?
I think it's a percentage of claims, too.
Yeah, it's a cap on what the premium would increase.
Could it be as low as the same premium we're paying now?
It could. I mean, this is just a ceiling.
Right.
It's not setting the premium, but, if we had, for some reason, a year we had a significant number of claims, that could spike our premium. So this helps to stabilize that so that we're not having those
I
spikes.
understand. I just think it's curious that they didn't quote a premium for the initial year.
Well, in effect,
Well,
they
it's
did.
not, so let me clarify,
They
it's
quoted a
not,
cap.
it's,
Well, but we know our premium is 85, so the cap, the maximum would be 8,500 over the 85,000 we pay now.
yeah, we can choose not to participate in this, and we can choose to continue coverage with them without participating in this. They'll re-rate us, in terms of determining our.
But we have to have workman's comp, so we would,
Yeah,
We have to have workman's comp from someplace, so it's either Primex under this cap program, which is a 3-year commitment, or Primex outside of the cap program, which doesn't then set a ceiling on your premiums, or workers' comp through either a commercial carrier or some alternate carrier.
This guarantees
I
us.
just
This-
want to understand the parameters, that's what I'm asking.
this gives us stability. What could happen, let's assume we went to another carrier.
Sure.
And they didn't have the 10%.
Right, Peter,
They could hit us for a 15%
I
increase.
understand the idea of the
Right,
cap.
right. Yep.
On page 2, it says annual contribution will be based on your exposure base. Is that the staffing level? What does exposure base mean?
I believe that's a staffing level.
So determining your workers' comp premium is a calculation that Climax would need to go through, and they look at, the type of positions, the number of staff. There's rating in terms of exposure for each type of position. For instance, someone who is a driver might have a different risk exposure than someone who's a classroom teacher versus somebody, in the food service program, which I don't want to confuse people. The food service staff are not our staff specifically, but I'm using that as an example.
And I think they include claims.
And then my last question, has the SREA, the teachers union and the staff union leadership seen this, and would they be interested, or?
This really wouldn't
Workers'
pertain
comp.
to them, this is
Right.
workers' comp.
I wasn't
and
sure if they had
It's not, it's a cost borne by the district that we must provide workers' comp. It's not something that is a negotiated item.
So one last question. In your experience with these programs, would you recommend that this is a benefit to the district?
I would.
Want to read the resolution? You want to read the this is what they're requiring to be in the document, I guess.
Right. So if the board is adopting this and participating in the CAP program, then Primax specifically requires the board to vote on this resolution. And I will read the resolution, which would then become a motion. So to hereby accept the offer of the New Hampshire Public Risk Management Exchange, Primax, to enter into its Workers' Compensation Contribution Assurance Program, CAP, as of the date of the adoption of this resolution, and to be contractually bound to all the terms and conditions of Primax Risk Management Pool membership during the term of the Workers' Compensation Contribution Assurance Program, or CAP. The coverage provided by Primax in each year of membership shall be as then set forth in the coverage documents of Primax.
Do I have a motion? Okay, second. Further discussion? All in favor? Okay, unanimous. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
I will sign this whenever somebody calls me and says, get down here to sign this. Okay, yearbook advertisement. In your packet, you will see there is a receipt from last year's. This has been done ever since I can remember. Last year was $350 for a full page that the school board paid for. I believe this year it is again $350 for a full page. Because it's an expensive money, it's something we need to discuss and make a motion on. Would anybody like to ask any questions? Well, let's have a motion first. To pay $300, so moved. Second?
Second.
Okay, now we can have any discussion anybody's got. You went first, but your hand's higher. Go ahead, what do you got?
The only question I had was, is this a budgeted expense?
It falls under the school board's expenditure line. It's not out above and beyond the budgeted amount.
And does he have like good luck?
I was going to bring in an old one, but I think it pretty much says it's a positive. I'm going to say it's a positive. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a nice public relation.
Right, and it's been done, like I say, I cannot remember a year we didn't do it. So, okay, further discussion? All in favor? Okay. Next meeting agenda. I want to talk a little bit about this because we have talked about school safety and security. And the superintendent's out, but I've already passed on that it is my intent to have a little presentation of the security and safety of the Sanborn Regional School District. Now, here's the fly in the ointment. We don't know how long it's going to take to get that information. Sometimes we want to have, but we need longer time to be ready. So please check the agenda It would be my intent to have it on the next agenda, but if it turns out that it's going to take longer than needed, because I'm guessing people may want to either watch it on TV or maybe be here. So I want to give advance notice about it. But because it could require more time than we have to put a good presentation together, please check the agenda. But it's my intent, and I believe you're on board and Tom's on board, to give a presentation about safety, security of all the different schools up to and including the high school. So people may want to attend more. But I can't say it's written in concrete because I don't know how much is involved. It could take us more than 2 weeks to get everything together. I wouldn't imagine it does, but I have to put that out there in case people come and say, well, you said there would be. Everybody get what I'm trying to say here, all right? Okay, so that's going to be there tentatively. Anybody else have anything they would like to see on the agenda? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to thank you for bringing up safety. I did bring up the issue of safety back in spring of 2016 when that Pulse nightclub shooting occurred, and had written to the prior superintendent 3 times asking for an update from the safety committee. And he warned me that everything was going well, but that he would prefer not to divulge any specifics of our policy for obvious reasons, because it might compromise security. But it would be great if at least we could have information about when the safety committee meets, if we would like to attend the meetings, just to listen in. And I'd also mentioned to the previous superintendent the idea of ID fobs, which some schools are using now, to prevent unauthorized entry that can be turned off. And I'd like to pursue that again if we can do that. So look into everything. Thank you.
All right. Any other things you'd like to see the agenda? Is there anybody has some announcements they want to talk about?
You're going to try to put the greenhouse on the agenda for the next time, right?
The greenhouse, we're going to be discussing the greenhouse, but a lot of it's going to depend if we get that report in time.
Okay.
Because they are tied. So we'll see. And it may be, again, if the safety and security looks like a longer presentation, we may push it off. But, we don't know how much a hungry man's going to eat, so it's hard to digest all of this and get it in there.
You may want to go into a non-public to hear more detail, if possible.
On safety and security?
Yes, things that
there
should
could
not
be
made
things.
public.
Again, we're gonna be working on that. Right now everybody's anxious, and understandably so. So we'll look at that. We'll discuss it. That's why I say I'd love to have it for the next one. But something like that may come up that's going to be a fly in the ointment that we may say, oh, maybe we have to go another week. I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm sure Tom would like to weigh in on that too.
Yeah,
And,
right.
with him being out this week, we want to have an opportunity to talk with him about that and develop a plan.
Right.
What information.
But the reason I'm bringing it up is I'm guessing that parents or citizens would like to maybe be here if we have that kind of discussion. But I don't want to say it's in concrete just now because we don't know for sure. Right? We understand that, but I'm not sure the public understands. It can take on longer, more information.
I agree with that, but I can say as a parent, I would hope that we would at least have a very brief.
The sooner the better.
If nothing else, I would hope for every parent of kids that go to these schools, that even if it was a very superficial, brief, initial assurance about what is currently in place, and then perhaps that longer discussion, as Pam's saying, with different options for how we might bolster security, et cetera, if those are things that people decide they want to pursue, would be a
and that's
So
absolutely legitimate.
I just want to put it out there. I can tell you as a parent,
You'd like to be assured we're doing stuff.
and I know what's going on, but I think,
Right.
to me, that's one of the roles of administration, is to provide, this is what we're doing right now. These are the things we're gonna.
Well, we'll discuss this, and I've already said, Monday, give Tom maybe an hour or so to get adjusted, and then give me a call and I'll come down. Okay. Let's see. Okay, announcements. The next Sanborn Regional School Board meeting will be held Wednesday, March 7th, 2018, from 6 to 9 p.m. in the library, Sanborn Regional High School. That's right here. Very important, at least to me it's very important. The second voting session of the annual school district meeting. Now, they call it the school district meeting. It's a legal thing. The voting is going to be held on Tuesday, March 13th, 2018, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. in the Swayze Gym, Sanborn Seminary campus for Kingston voters, and the Newton Town Hall for the Newton voters. So please, election day, that to me is the more common term, is on the 13th. That is usually about a week later. It just happens to be the law. I think it's the second Tuesday, or the first Tuesday following the second Monday or something, so it happens to be pushed off. Is there anything else that a school board member can think of? If not, we do not have any non-public, and I will take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second by, okay. Tammy, yeah, Taryn, all right. Okay, all in favor? That is unanimous.